a brand new day, and we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay? We have come so far. This is who we are. And like the rising sun, we have just begun to play our part. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show our colors. We are heroes and dreamers. We are restless believers.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range, where we graze on wild ideas and we have wonderful guests. And today it seems as though we have Egypt on our mind a lot lately. And I have a young woman who has been to Egypt, and we're going to talk about what she has seen. Her name is Erika Simmons, and she has a very interesting background, and I'm going to bring her on and let her talk a little bit more about her background and some of the pictures that she's gotten from Egypt. And she was there just recently too. And so, hi, Erika.
Gail, when you get a chance, send me the link and then I can share it. I forgot about that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. And I have on your, let me bring on your pictures, because that should be
I'm kind of silly.
right here. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit, before we start the pictures from Egypt, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do and what you're learning to do?
Starting out now as an oil morpher, training to be a guide in Egypt, and that's like so far left from where I was before as a medical lab technician in the military.
Yeah, that is a leap.
Huge leap. So, but that time I got to spend in the military, I got to spend a lot of time traveling, and all over Europe, like Italy and Budapest, Belgium, and places like that. And it was really cool. But then I decided to get married and have a baby, and that was like, okay, time to go back home. But I knew I always wanted to go back, and I think I just really got to see over time how depleted I had become from working in the military and then being a lab tech at the VA, that I went through some issues with memory, even to the point where my sister was telling me, she would tell me things and I had absolutely no memory of it, until one day somebody was like, hey, and I was like, what? And they were like, hey, you were right in the middle of a sentence and you just stopped talking. And I said, well, what did I say? Like, I still don't even know what I said, but I just knew that something was happening to me, and it didn't just start. This is something that has been happening like my full lifetime, that I got a chance to medically retire at that point, because working in the lab, you can't like wake up from whatever is happening. And I'm like pouring blood in the wrong tube. I was literally like pouring Johnson into Jackson. And because of that one thing that person said, it made me like, oh, there is really something severely wrong. Something is really going on. And I was on a mission to try to figure out what it was that was wrong with me and figure it out through nutrition and stuff. But with all that time on the internet, I started to see things like, oh, there's a super highway coming from Mexico to Canada. And I was like, oh my God. And I was seeing different stuff and joining these different groups, and like that just really spun my mind around. But the sad part for me was that at the time it wasn't a spiritual discovery. It was more just an awakening on the negative parts of what was going on the planet. And I had to like take my time to find ways to cope with that. And then over time, even more weird is I started selling life insurance as a way, because I was like, I needed to do something to keep my mind occupied.
Mhm.
But during that time of doing the life insurance, they did a lot of affirmations and they did a lot of like Think and Grow Rich. The Gosh, I can't think of all the books. But we were just starting to read books with the water experiment, the rice experiment. Like, so it became this awakening of metaphysics. And I started doing vision boards. And then it hit 2020 when I really just stopped going into the office. And that's when the spiritual awakening was really risen inside me. And I started to meet all these people like you and Asha and different people. I started watching shows like James Rink and things like that, and boom, it just kind of progressed on to I'm fully aware and understanding that everything that I've thought before really is true and it's real, and here I am.
Well, I think everybody is in for an increased awareness in time as we go on here. Many things we haven't been told the truth about.
Yeah. I think even with that, it's still a limitation because as much as you think you're out of the program, there's still these hidden programs that you are not aware of yet. And you're like, you got me. Here's another one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why self-inquiry is so important, because it really helps us to get to the bottom of a lot of different things. And people are going through a lot right now. And so I don't know how you can help but be somewhat spiritual, because who are you going to turn to? Your creator.
I mean, if you don't, and then too, if you try to look at the whole big picture of everything that's going on at once, you'll lose it. You can't. And I think that's probably what happened to me in 2017. I was looking at the whole thing at once. And then a friend of mine said, well, in the Matrix, all time exists at once. And I don't know why that made me able to breathe. And it made me understand like, oh, this is already, what is happening has already happened. Like we're in the time of where it hasn't happened, already happened, happening now. Like all of this all exists at once. And then for some reason I was like, okay, I'm relaxed now.
I can roll with that. I know.
Yeah, it turns some kind of key. And I think too, one of the things, everything for me was really stuck on the Matrix, and it was that like all time exists at once. And then one thing that I ended up helping him with is you think you're Neo. Everybody wants to be Neo, but sometimes you're just the Oracle. It's not your job to fix everything and fix everyone and run out and save and dash, but your job is to be there when someone has the question to help them.
Yeah, because everybody has to walk their own path, their own journey. Right. We're not supposed to try to rescue people or anything like that. We can give suggestions, guidance, or whatever, but it's up to them.
True. And I see a lot of people saying like, people should hurry up. And I'm like, how could you tell people to hurry up? Don't you know 10 years ago, somebody was waiting on you. And then 20 years ago, somebody was waiting on them. So it's like this thing where just kind of step back.
Yeah. And people need to get out of judgment too. They're really judging others when you don't know what they've been through. You don't know their life path. You don't know.
And they might be the one that passed you by. Yeah. Where you think you got it all together, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know you was a super light warrior who could jump off the roof and fly over to the Capitol building and do all this. Like, I didn't know you do all that, Like, calm down. You don't know what's coming behind you. And just be grateful and open. It's hard. Just come back, focus, come back.
in the now and in the heart is what's the most important. It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky. So shall we look at some of your pictures?
Sure. Now most people, they'll like ask me like, how did you end up going to Egypt? It's funny because I make these little resin aunts. I don't know if you can see them. Like, so I make all these little resin aunts and stuff like that. But the funny thing, this was just something because I had a friend who used to cut a lot of wood. And then I was looking at James And I thought, oh, I'm going to make these pyramids and I'm going to do this. And I started studying radionics by watching James Rink show. And then I just end up playing with resin and making aunts and making them out of clay and then making these things. Had no intentions of going to Egypt or anything like that. But then I was in this book group called the Sophia Code, and I decided, okay, we spent all this time in 2020 on the computer, 2021, we got to go back outside. And I started being friends with people that were local, and I said, I'll find some women local in this book group. And it just so happened that this lady was going to Egypt, and I was like, okay, I'll go. And it wasn't like I was even rich, but I had a car accident and my settlement money was coming and she was going, and I was like, okay, then.
Oh, the timing was perfect.
Yeah, it was just like this once in a lifetime, or what I thought was this once in a lifetime thing. And I went with her in December, but after being there for 3 days, I was like, no, I need to be here. And so I planned ever since that minute, the third day, I was like, I know I'm coming back. And then 6 months later, I went back and I did a 30-day trip that turned out to be like a 40-day trip. So,
well, it's fascinating because a lot of the people that I interview have been to Egypt. Thunderbeat has been to Egypt.
I know, I'd love
Corey
to.
Cassidy has been to Egypt every year.
Yeah.
I think Patricia Corey, I think she's been there too. A lot of people have been to Egypt. I wish I was one of them.
I know. I hope we can make you one of them, because I think people who are watching you, they should go with you, and you have your own trip and people come with you to go visit.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
That would be lovely. So people should put that in the chat. Like, I'll go with you, Gail.
Well, we'll have to do a fundraiser to be able to get there.
That's right. That's right. Because I really don't want that to be, I guess I don't want this to be like a bucket list thing. Like, to me, it would have been a bucket list thing, but there's no way I can stay away from it. I have to go back. And I have to just keep going back, because now it's more like something that's becoming like a life study. Because I know what a lot of people say about pyramids and they say about the walls, but I like the fact that you can go and get your own messages. So I really like for people to think of it as a self-discovery, because if you were there, you might have been there in the 12th century. I might have been there in the 25th century or whenever, or 25th, yeah, whatever. But we've been there at different times and maybe more than once, but you have messages there, you have keys there, and you being there, getting your keys and your energy and your messages, like maybe you have a different piece of the puzzle rather than what someone else is telling. So I just don't want people to rely on the pictures that other people have in their stories, but go find your story, because it really gives you messages just being there. It's truly what I would call an unfolding, for real.
Well, what's fascinating about all this is not only do we have Egypt in Egypt, but we actually have Egypt here in Sedona, which sounds crazy. I mean, it really does. But when you look at those
sound
blocks,
crazy to me. Yeah,
well, that's good.
It doesn't sound crazy to me. I actually had someone approach me about that, and I said, well, what if this whole thing is Egypt? What about that? Because there's a couple of things that crossed my mind too, because I heard Brooks Agnew talking about how all the plates and everything were together as one, and as Earth is expanding, then you get the continents. Because if you do look at it, those pieces all do fit together, right?
Oh, that's true. And that would make, it could have been the whole thing.
So then what if it was the whole thing? You know, we rely on these little maps or whatever, but we really don't know what it all was, you know, like we have these newer ideas from looking back, but what if originally the whole thing was this? That's just one of my theories, and then you separate it. But then another theory of mine, as I was standing there one day, I was looking at the walls of the temples, and I thought, this isn't just here. No one goes and puts this here in this one spot. The person goes and does it everywhere. Like when you look at what Ramses did, he spread it everywhere. Right, Ramses I think it was the third. But if you're saying that this is the Anunnaki race that is actually doing this, why would they do it just here? what we do even as humans, right? We move, you have the settlement in Roanoke, and then you move to Richmond. And what do? You go build a Capitol building like you did the other one, and then you build a church, and then you build a town hall, and then you have Main Street, and then you have a bank. So when you set up a civilization, you do it right because you simulate what you already know, and then you're gonna base it on the geometry, the ley lines, and like you go and you find, oh, this is the correct energy spot. Put this here. We even know that, like, because you were talking about the lady with the rocks, a lot of the rocks that we have are markers for ley lines that we don't know. Like when you go to a public park, there's these giant rocks. Underneath that rock, you might find that there's water, and then it's on a ley line. But even that, the rock is magnetic, like it has a magnetic draw to it. So of course, it's only reasonable that you would simulate the same thing, because even when, I guess they were talking about the Mississippi too, how it's symmetrical, the way the Nile is, like it's just like a duplication. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
Well, we had two major floods. I mean, there was one flood, and this came from Thunderbird like 13,000 years ago, and the Noah flood was like 6,000 years ago. And at those times, and then there was something in the 1800s, some Carrington event here in the United States. But anyway, all these different things have happened that, like you were saying, that's why all the pieces to the used to fit together.
Yeah,
and now they don't. And so that's from these catastrophic different things that have happened, I believe. And
right. And you start over and you go build the same thing that you had before, but I guess what we were lacking is the knowledge on understanding the energetic parts of the earth, the ley lines, and that oh no, these buildings aren't just built in random places. These are built
on ley lines.
Exactly. And so that's us coming late, not understanding or being left out of the know.
Mm-hmm. Well, considering when we reincarnate and have your memory wiped every time, and have a relatively short lifespan, I mean, it's a way to keep you down. It's a way to keep a civilization down. It's how they kept humanity down for as long as they have. The people that are truly in charge.
All hail Skynet, right? Like,
it sure seems that way. Yep.
Oh goodness.
Let's see what we got here.
Oh yeah, that's me at the Isis temple hanging out. Woo!
Let me see if I can make it bigger. That's a little bit bigger.
One day I got to even swim in that water over there by the Isis temple. But that was amazing.
Let me take
it was amazing because when we went there, we went to the original steps that were in the water, but then you go to where they moved it. And I was like, how did they do this? But they did that in the 60s because it kept getting flooded with water. Like it was just, you see the lines, like where the dirt marks are there.
So right here. Oh, you probably don't see that. I'm looking at it. But wow, that's interesting. Well, that was, speaking of water lines, I'm going to mention this too, because when if you look at this picture, I don't know if you can see it very well, but this is the picture of Sedona rocks, where the top of the rocks are white. That's where the red is where the water was. So the water line was all the way to the tippy top, almost to the tippy top.
Right. You see a lot of stuff is covered with dirt, but that first day, you'll see it in the next picture. This was like towards the end of the trip, so that's just my little like cover of it. So when I was there, the first day we just ate and chilled, but the second day we went out to the Giza pyramids, and I was picking these things up, and I was looking at the pyramid rocks, and I was like, this whole thing was covered by water, and that was just the message that was given to me. So I'm not really thinking about Noah's flood or anything like that. But when I was looking around, I understood that this whole thing is covered with water, and these rocks, they have basically like fossil things inside of them, diatoms and things. And then the Giza pyramids, they'll tell you they're made out of sediment. And when you look that up, what is that? That's basically the ocean floor. So the rocks of the pyramids are made from the ocean floor. And yeah, it's all been underwater. And so I don't know if is it that the rock they used was taken from another place under the water? Was the whole area just flooded with water? And but whatever it is, that these rocks are all sediment and it's all been under the ocean floor. But I mean, I could read about that, or I could like go there and be like, hey, self-discovery, that's kind of why I enjoy it so much.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh,
Yeah, that's a lot going on. I love Hatshepsut's temple. So she
what
has
a beautiful.
In that one picture, it doesn't do it any justice, because in the bottom right, you see the temple carved out of rock, but then you see all the rocks surrounding it that remains, and there's still tombs and things all behind there in that rock. But you get to go up there, and she has a lot of Horus, him guarding the pillars in the front, and then the pillars on the side, it's all Hathor. And then on the right side, it's a lot of drawings of Anubis. She had a great respect for Anubis. And it's so funny because you see me in the sweater sitting down. For some reason, this man let me drive from the passenger seat. So I drive the cart from the passenger seat. And then the top corner where I'm standing there with my hands out like that, one of the guards, because you're going here and this isn't a place where you can just go pray and hold hands and kind of do any, thing like that. And this man actually asked me to pray for him. One of the guards actually asked for me to pray for him there. And I was just overwhelmed with emotion at that point. And that was like one of the first times where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I really feel welcome and received. And Hatshepsut, they say that she ruled for about 19 years. So she was plotted on. She had to marry her brother, and she got plotted on a lot. You'll see that most of the royalty, they're fighting over who's going to be in charge. And they say 19 years. But when you look at all the obelisks and things that she does, it just doesn't seem like it was 19 years. I know for me personally, a lot of the numbers that they use, I'm not necessarily a rigid believer. Like you say, the history, they lie.
Yeah.
So, but I know one thing that stands out to me is in the Bible, they say 1 year to God is like 1,000 years to man.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they call the rulers back then gods or demigods. I think because they lived a whole lot longer. So was it really 19 years, 190 years, 1900 years?
Yeah, really.
I just feel like there's some flexibility that it's more, the pyramids were built 4,000 years ago. I really just don't think that. I think it's a lot longer periods of time than what people are saying. And I've seen a lot of people talk about, the carbon dating, but I think that our understanding of time is not correct, right?
Right. Well, it's a construct, and it's used to our demise in many ways. What is this one figure up in the upper right-hand corner from
the upper right? That is the god Horus. So son.
Okay, I thought I recognized it. Okay.
Yeah. So the son of Isis and Osiris, right?
Right. Cool. And I think these beards that they have are always the guys on
that's her with a beard on.
That's what?
That is Hatshepsut. That's why she's the female king. She's a female pharaoh. So in her portraits, they put the male beard on her.
Wow. Okay.
Because she took the throne as she took that title as the female pharaoh. Yeah.
I'll be darned. Okay.
Yeah. So all of those, I'm so glad you said that. All of those just happened to be her. Yeah.
Yeah. I always find those little the where they did their beards kind of interesting. Now here's a bunch of Ankhs in the Karnak Temple.
Yeah. So in the city of Luxor, there's the Karnak Temple, and they have the 7 keys and the 7 doors. I haven't done a lot of research on them, but of course, everyone says that this is the area of a Stargate. And I was able to do a meditation there. But like I said, to me, this is more like a life study. So I plan to go back and spend more time there. This was one of the best temples. In the middle, that's actually Sekhmet. So mostly this temple is known for where you go to see the Sekhmet statue, right?
Oh.
And then you see the boats and stuff. And so, but there's also like a red temple on the side that Hatshepsut, she put a lot of work into the Karnak temple. So she's got her Hatshepsut temple, but the Karnak temple, she put a lot of work into that. She had a red temple on the side. There's the Sekhmet area. Yeah. There's even a temple for Khonsu on the right-hand side. And I was able to go see that. And these, the 7 keys and the 7 gates, it's far in the back. There's a lot of walking in this area. Like I need to actually get the measurements, but it feels like 2 football fields by the time you get done walking. That was a really tough day. So I got to go see the Temple of Khonsu, and I don't know if you know anything about that guy.
No, I don't.
Actually, Khonsu looks like Horus. So we just saw Horus.
Yeah.
Khonsu looks like Horus, but he has like a moon disc on his head, and he's the god of the moon, right? And there's a show out called, but that is like in a later slide I can show you the stuff about Moon Knight. But it was cool because I was like, oh my God, I watched Moon Knight, and I went into the temple. I was like, oh my God. Disney movie, so now I saw it. So that was cool.
And here's Hathor's temple.
Right. And there up top is Newt. And on the other end of that photo, that's a super long wall. So you can't even record that all at once.
Wow.
It's so long. So, and it has her arms just shooting out, and she's swallowing the sun god Ra so that it can become night. And in her belly is Hathor coming out. And so Hathor, people think it's like one Hathor, but then there are the Hathors, right? The 7 sisters of the Pleiades, the women that rule the Milky Way. And also, in Native American culture, the 7 sisters of the Pleiades, that's basically the story telling us how we come into existence in this universe through this portal, through the 7 sisters. So the Native Americans have stories about her as well.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to try to get a Nahopi elder on, but I don't think it's pretty tricky to do.
Yeah.
They don't like to they don't like to do that too much. So
totally understandable.
No,
and then I went down to Aswan and so many things in Aswan. I went to the museum, and that's where you're seeing these little statues. And then in the village, you see the murals. And this is a place where people like to keep crocodiles as pets. And
as pets?
As pets, just because. I went to one house and there was at least 7 crocodiles in there. I was sitting on a bench, and behind me was like 2 crocodiles. I didn't even know they were the bench was built into their pen, like on the outside edge of their pen. So you just turn around, it's like just crocodiles.
Wow. And nobody gets hurt that way, right?
No, not that I know of. And I asked him, I was like, so he's a good pet. Like, will he bite you? He was like, what do you think? I'm like, oh, okay. So
so how is he a pet bat if he bites you?
I know. They wrap their mouths and they keep them, but they keep them up and they're pretty good. They become pretty good size too. Not anything to sneeze at.
I mean, what's the purpose? I don't get it.
I do not know. Unless it's just like a status symbol to say I got 17 crocodiles. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it must be something crazy like that. Oh, and here we have making bread.
So this thing on the left, it is, I got to stay in this home. It was a Nubian home. And so she makes a flat kind of bread where she's on the floor and there's like this heated, how do you say, it's not kerosene, like a propane flame.
Uh-huh.
And it is hot in that kitchen. And she's just on there. It's like 6 something in the morning and she's just on there making bread one by one. And I can't even. I said, "Oh my God, I gotta go home and make my son some pancakes because I feel so lazy." But yeah, it was beautiful. This woman, she was so beautiful to me, and she was so kind. And on the left side, this is not a Nubian village, but this is actually in Dendara, where they have the oven outside, and they're like on the ground. And if we had had the video for it, what you'll see is they're grabbing this straw from the ground and it's mixed with cow manure.
Lovely.
And they throw it in there to build the fire. And she's just literally just like throwing it in there until it heats up to this super, super hot temperature. And then like 30 cakes of bread, they clean the oven out and then put 30 cakes of bread in there at one time. And they cook this bread. And it's amazing. And I go touch the oven. I put my hand on the side of it and everything. And it was amazing because it's like mud on the outside and it's not hot on the outside.
I'll be darned.
Once they close it up.
Was she making bread for a family or to sell or for a lot of people or
for her family? Because it's like a group of sisters and a mom. And it's, you know, like all the guys, they're on the other side of this building next to the horses and everything. So everybody's outside drinking tea and you know, doing their thing. And the women are all on this side and they're like talking and making bread. And I got down there and helped pass these little things out and get them in the oven. And I was just like, no, ma'am, I can't do it. you gotta kind of look back at your ancestors with respect that this, you know,
how difficult it was to do a lot of different things. Oh my goodness.
Well, one thing about that was just half of the bread because there's another 30 cakes on the table, right? So I said, how often do they do this? They said, well, it just depends on how many people are in town or like if they got people visiting and stuff like that. But normally just once every 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, okay. I feel better now.
Okay. Now, on this next picture, is that woman, I don't know how to say her name. Nephis? Who is that?
Actually, let me make this bigger even for my eye because that's kind of small. Because I think if she has a feather on her head, then that's Mott, but I can't see. That is actually Nefertiti. No, not Nefertiti. I think that's actually Isis. Yeah, that's Isis. Because so this is one thing I learned while I was there, and I should have shared that with you too. Is the little, gosh, how could I forget this word? But this is what I'm known for, right? The little, the circular, they're the oblong shapes. They'll have the symbols with their names in them, and so you have to look at the symbols beside them. And so she has her the female next to her crown, next to her royal seat in the snake, and so that's actually Isis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking at another picture of her.
It's called a cartouche. So when you want to know, because a lot of times Isis will look like Hathor and Nefertari. Sometimes they'll all have a disc over their head sometimes, and so you'll think, oh, this is all Isis, and it's like, no, this one's actually Hathor. So you have to read their cartouches, and the cartouches are on the side, and so that's something else that I'm learning is how to read the cartouches to see who the person actually is. Because Khonsu actually looks like Horus too. They both falcons. They both have a falcon head. So how do you tell the difference? Well, one of them has a moon, and then the other one will have like a red disc instead of the moon.
Well, these beings are kind of fascinating because they're like half animal and half human, or all kind of. Maybe they're not human at all. I don't know. What do you think about that? That different race.
So then, Tefnut and Sekhmet would definitely have to be what we call a Lyran, right? Lyran being.
Oh yeah. Definitely, yeah.
So that already gives us a clue. And then you have what not all Anunnaki are the same. I'm to this point where I'm looking at the walls and I'm seeing even that one snake, and then the snake reaches the afterlife, and then all of a sudden the snake has the body of a human and the head of a snake. Like, I'm like, is this Satan, what we would call Satan, or Lucifer? So
where did you see that?
That actually was in the Dendera temple. So there are these balloon shapes that some people say this is a sperm. Some people say it's a flashlight or some type of other type of digital, some other type of modern device, right? But it's like a eggplant. So when I was sitting there with it, I was, because I got to stay in there for like 20 minutes by myself, and I'm just looking at it, and I noticed, the snake, first the snake is here, then it goes through the lotus flower, and then it's coming out, and that aura around it really is a representation of the snake going into the afterlife. And then now when you keep going further down the wall, the snake has a human body. Now it's become a god. So with Osiris, supposedly, as we understand, being the first one to pass through the 12 gates, Isis as the priestess helps him get through the gates and pass from the afterlife back into life, so he can be reincarnated. So he's the first one. There's even this point where some don't always agree, but that Ra becomes Amun-Ra because he learns from Osiris how to go through the afterlife. Like, he has to be the first one to do it for the males. And he was the representative at one point for males and females, but then Hathor became the representative for the females as going through the afterlife and coming back. So it's about conquering the afterlife. And that's the perfect time to talk about Amet and Moon Knight. And you see Thoth next there as the recorder, of events. In the top on the chair, that's Amet. So Amet will sometimes be on the floor next to the scales, or like you see on this chair. Amet has the face of a crocodile, and the bottom half should be like a hippopotamus. And when Anubis over here is next to Horus, so they're weighing the heart next to a feather. If you live this lifetime basically doing your best, that your heart is light as a feather, that you know that you haven't done any wrong and you're not dying with regret. I don't know if people saw Lucifer. Like Lucifer, people create their own hell, right? Because of their worries and regrets. Mm-hmm. That if the heart is light as a feather, you get to go on. What if your heart doesn't, if you don't go on, then Amet over here will eat your heart. So the little crocodile thing that looks like a dog, that's why her tongue is out and she's waiting, like hungry, because she's going to eat that heart. So what happens in the show Moon Knight is she becomes out of balance. She doesn't wait for people to die anymore. She says, I want to judge them now during their life. She doesn't wait till they die. And so now she's just out taking the lives of people that she feels their heart is bad. And she's weighing them before they've gotten a chance to finish living their life. And I know, I don't know. I was talking to someone else earlier, like my life hasn't always been where I was the good guy, but that we live the course of our life and we're allowed time to change. Until that point, then we can be judged. But that's kind of the thing with Ahmed and Kansu and Moon Knight and so forth. So they
So
leave Anubis out of the show, but
and here's Anubis, and he's at Universal Studios. That's
really so. There's a
blows
mummy
me
ride.
away.
There's a mummy ride at Universal Studios. So the first time I went on the mummy ride, we're at that conference in October of last year. I went through the ride and I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with him? Like, he's irritated with the people. And I was talking to the people I was with, and they were like, just discussing how Anubis was maybe the last of his kind, that he fought a very hard battle, that he's not like this bad guy, but somewhat misunderstood, but that he was, suffered a lot during his lifetime, right? But here at Universal, they have him dangling off the floor with ropes around his neck, ropes around his arm, ropes around his feet. And a lot of people might think it's real because this isn't the original Nubis. This isn't the real Nubis. But we know, like, you put these things on your altar because it carries the energy. And so I know that he carries the energy. He was very irritated. When I got off the ride, my purse straps popped and everything fell out. And I had to get a new purse. The second time I went past him, we were going really fast. It was me and my son this time, months later. And I ducked underneath a rope. My whole bra strap got caught in this rope. It was like the most insane thing that happened. Bizarre. And I was stuck. And the only thing I could do was pop my bra and come loose to get loose to go ride the ride. But then when I stopped, I took this picture and I hadn't been able to see this before, that, oh my God, he's really tied up in the ropes. Like I was just tied up in the ropes. And
why do they have him presented in that manner, all tied up?
Well, on the Mummy, you remember the movie, The Mummy, how they were all packing all that stuff up on the ship? So at Universal, what they're doing is showing you a scene from the movie or making it like a recreation. And so this scene is the ropes lifting him up so he can be put on the ship. But at this point, he's suspended in that point in time. And they, he's stuck like this.
Okay. Why don't you tell us about his what his role is?
Well, here was Osiris and Isis have no children at first, right? They have two other counterparts because they're brother and sister, even though they're married, right? They're brother and sister. Their other brother and sister is Seth and Nephthys or Nephthys. Nephthys looks a lot like Isis. And so in the story that they tell, Nephthys seduces Osiris and he sleeps with her and she gets pregnant. She can't have children with Seth. And Seth is another dog-head god, which is really strange too. Because he has different kinds of ears, but he still like looks somewhat like a dog. And he becomes very jealous and enraged, and he plots. And it's like 200, I don't know, like maybe 30 other people get together, and they plot on Osiris and capture him inside this container where he's supposed to. The person who fits gets to keep it as a gift, but instead this container slices him up into 14 pieces. And one of the pieces is his penis. So he separates all the pieces of Osiris and throws them out. And one of them is the penis. It gets thrown into the river. And so these fish that eat it, whatever kind of fish this is, I can't remember, I'm sorry, but they don't eat that kind of fish in Egypt. So they don't eat that kind of fish anymore. But so Isis goes through the trouble of reassembling him, and Anubis gets thrown away. So Nephthys does this, but she throws away or hides her baby. And Isis shows favor to him because it's the son of her husband that she loves. So he helps Anubis. He's also another person that helps Osiris. He does a lot of favors for a lot of people when it comes to the afterlife, like helping people come back or helping people with the mission, because I think he even supposed to have helped Newt with her 5 days at a time. So anyway, it's this basically he's the son of Osiris and he rules the afterlife, and it's not as if he's this scary type God when they're talking about these stories. It's more that he just has that job of weighing your heart and managing the afterlife,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of interesting about him, that was his role.
Yeah, somebody has to take the bad job.
Yeah. And it was funny. I looked him up and I was reading about it, and people were asking because of what was his role and was he good or was he bad, and basically he was good according
So
to
this
what I
is
read.
even a thing, because if you look, people would want to say Set was bad, but was he bad or was he jealous? Was his feelings hurt? When it comes to the gods, and there is no just a firm good or bad. They're just like us. Like we're good people, but we do really messed up stuff sometimes, and we have, our logic behind it. So morality is relative morality or ambiguous morality in all things. And it's, you know, polarity where we see things as it has to be with this polarity. But there was a specific god, I cannot remember her name, but when it comes to chaos, out of chaos there's creation. So they don't, in Egyptian religion there's no good and bad in that sense.
Okay.
So these are just some of the items that I make, energetic. And so I rely on other people to tell me the energy that they feel. So I get a lot of good responses on, the energetic properties that.
Yeah, I just excuse me. That's some very pretty jewelry.
Thank
You
you.
make that yourself, huh?
Yeah, with my resin. So yeah, I like playing with resin.
So if somebody goes to this link here, I can't really.
That's me all over the place. Facebook,
Can
Telegram.
Okay. Can you give me a copy of that link in the chat, the private chat, and then I can put it over in the chat and people can see it, because it's kind of long, so people can.
So yes, if you go to Linktree, go to the first B1ST lady Erika. So how do I do it with the chat? How do I do it here? Oh my gosh, I could have said hello to Mary Jean, but I didn't know where to type.
Yeah, here we go. I will make a copy of this.
Get back on
and
here.
Put it in here.
And so you can see it? I can't see anything. But
okay. Now it's in the chat. So if anyone is interested in the different jewelry that Erika makes, and you put energy, you do frequency with it, or?
Yes, it just is. It just is, as a galactic super center, and I just have the energy. And it's weird too, because I was hanging out with some actual secular people and they recognize it, and that's how I actually was learning about the fact that I'm not just creating purely designs, right? Is that it was two female pastors, and they said these items will help people connect with the creator.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what everybody needs to do now. We all need to connect. It's a very important time to do that.
Right. So to me, it was mind blowing later on to be like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't even, I didn't know. I mean, I've heard of Water for Chocolate. Have you heard of that book?
What is it? No.
Like Water for Chocolate, where the young lady, when she cooks, the love she has inside of her goes inside her food.
Wow, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one before.
Oh yeah, so it's
Interesting.
also a movie, it's a book, but uh, I would say if you wanted to understand how that works, that definitely is how it works. The energy from the person goes into their food. Maybe that, and there's too. Sometimes I've heard that about people who do your hair. Like, be careful who touches your hair and who does your hair,
Oh, really?
because some people have, yeah, because some people have growing hands. And so when they do your hair, and then some people they have like negative energy on them, and so your hair fall out. Yeah, I've heard that.
Whoa, I didn't know. That's a new one. No, I heard like, I don't know about you, but you frequently shop at um, secondhand rose type stores and so on. And somebody said you really should.
Oh yeah,
There's
my
something
mother taught me about that. Yeah, you
with
should
the
save
clothes.
things out. Sometimes I leave things on my porch before I bring them inside my house. Yeah. Oh yes, ma'am. Energy is
And you can
everywhere.
sage them, or you can do any number of
Yeah.
things to make sure there's no bad energy. But guess what? We're almost coming up on. We're at 51 minutes right now,
Yeah, we
almost
got
an
it.
hour. So, what were you going to say?
Yeah, we got to rock and roll, sister.
Yeah, that's it. So, did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
No, besides just for people, just connect with your own energy. And I know we learn a lot from others, but I like self-discovery myself, and I don't want people to think that traveling the world is like a thing that they need to do for a bucket list. Like, I think too, and don't sit in your house thinking like, I mean, I believe you should be prepared, like stocking up on things, but don't allow that fear factor to stop you from living. I think a lot right now with different people and different channels, it's gotten people to where they're trapped inside their houses and feeling like they don't have choices in life. When wealthy people haven't stopped traveling, not one lick. You see
Yeah,
that?
I
Nobody.
never.
People are on beaches and all kinds of stuff. When I started seeing people like, you went to Hawaii, like, oh, I'm going. Don't be fooled, because the thing is, people are stealing your sovereignty by allowing you to be afraid and trapped inside your home. So
And yeah,
definitely don't let them take your power away.
don't let them run your life, because that's what they're trying to do, really. So, I guess I shall say thank you, everyone, for listening, and always look for this show. And please hit the like button and share button and notification button. All those things help the algorithms, because I've been a censored channel, and I don't want to stay that way. But hopefully that's all going to change pretty soon. We should be able to. This is supposed to be America, and we're supposed to have freedom of speech and all that good stuff. But
That was my scariest thought coming back home was, Lord, if they do one more election, I said, oh my God, I can't. And people say,
I
no, there's no way
know.
it can happen again. Well, how did it happen the first time? So
And
I'm
then the
just,
second time too. And
yeah,
so yeah. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's like,
yeah.
why bother going to the polls? Why bother? But now they're saying that we shouldn't feel that way because it's going to be blockchain. Well, I just don't know. And
No, I don't know if that's what we're supposed to be doing. But I think it's like teaching us that we really don't have control. You really don't. The
you
machines are
don't.
all fake. Okay.
Yeah.
In 1960s, I remember this one guy got elected, and they were like by 9 million votes, and it was like way more than could even be in that district. So
Reasonable. Yeah. There was a
yeah,
lot of that. We got to be careful talking about this, because they will censor you for this too.
yeah.
Just like they do for the program that they ran. They don't want people to know the truth. And that's something that's very concerning.
No,
And
we need Gail's channel, and Gail needs your support. We need Gail's channel as much as possible.
well, I thank you, Erika. I try to get as much out there as I possibly can to help people. And so, with that being said, I think we will call it a wrap. And okay, Cosmic Mama says, "Hey, Mary Jean, you got to put that in the other chat in order for her to see it."
I don't know how to do it.
Okay, well, we'll figure that out next. If we have a next time, it shouldn't be a problem,
It says
really.
something about private.
That's for you and I.
Oh,
Okay. The other chat is on the side, or it should be to the, that's to the right, is where I see it.
well, ignore us because that's me being.
Well, all these platforms are different, and it's a real challenge sometimes figuring them all out. I've almost got this one down, but I still make mistakes and stuff. So I don't feel bad. And bye, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and energy and sharing those wonderful stories from Egypt. And have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right.
That's it. Goodbye, everyone.
We have found our way. It's a brand new day, and we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay? We have come so far. This is who we are. And like the rising sun, we have just begun to play our part. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show our